So I did talk to a friend who's a Native American, and he will be flying, but he'll just have 3 feathers, which is what his tribe does. But he won't wear his war bonnet in the cockpit as he's flying around.
There was a real American #1 character. It was just an Indian that beat up guys. American Indian.
Now he tells us.
Yeah, as Marty will back
It's
up.
too late.
As Marty will back up, if you're looking for racial and sexual diversity in Golden Age superheroes, you are looking in the wrong place. So, with that in mind, Michael made extra efforts and tried to, find his way around that. So, and I think he's done a good job of that.
Alternatively, if you're looking for Nazis with skull faces,
This-
that's the place to go. He has a whole team of them.
That's right. If you like punching Nazis, this is the book for you.
So in our book, let me talk about that for a minute, and everybody can jump in. The main crux of the graphic novel concerns an attempt by Adolf Hitler and his 4 super villain advisors, Misery, the Claw, the Great Question, who was a very famous villain back in the 40s, and of course the Deathless Brain, a Japanese warrior who died, and his brain was put in a semi-transparent cube with tentacles. The 4 of them are advising Hitler, and because who better to listen to than a brain?
Really, Himmler, backseat to you. Let's hear what the brain has to say.
So the brain, they hatch a plot to assassinate President Roosevelt, and they use 2 teams we created. One is comprised of all the reptilian snake villains that I could find, and the other is comprised of all of these skull villains that I could find. So we have like the singing skull, the laughing skull, the crimson skull, who looks just like the red skull, but he's the crimson skull, and he predates the red skull. A completely different kind of thing. We have the ghoul, so anybody, in fact, even if you look at this giant, he has a little skull on his chest, so he made the cut too. So I again, when Mark first asked me, how do you get started? Well, the first thing you got to do is stop reading the comics. So I kept reading more and more and more, and every time I go, I need one more skull character, just one more. I'll have to read another 400 comics, and I'll surely find one. Because every issue in the Golden Age, a bunch of Nazi or other Axis villains showed up, were defeated, in 8 or 9 pages in a 40-page comic, 50-page comic, and then the next month they did it all over again. So Dave, anything you want to know? Yeah. I know you're going in big on the Kickstarter.
The economics of it are interesting to me. I assume the Kickstarter is what enables you to financially, pay these guys. I assume they're getting paid. Maybe that's a sort of subject. And print the first issue. But
well, they are, yeah.
You asked me that. What I get paid for? So,
I financed it with my poker winnings, beating you, Dave.
Well, how do you do this going forward, or is this it?
So let me talk about that. Number one, the first thing, once you decide that you really want to do something, and your heart's really calling you to do it, you've got to figure out, of course, how many pages, what can you afford, what are the publishing costs, how do you deal with the talent, how do you pay the talent, when do you pay the talent, do you give them a share of the profits, how do you do all of those things? I think I'm really blessed that I had a good group of friends that were willing to help me see this through, so that was really important. That Kickstarter was important. We're publishing in the United States. That was also something I wanted to do right now. It's in color, it makes it easy. Given some of the things with tariffs going on, I didn't want to necessarily try to finance overseas and find out it would cost me 5 times what I wanted. Plus you can print to order here, Dave, so you don't have to be like Marvel or DC and order 20,000 copies and then say, well, I only could sell 5,000. We're also blessed with a partner, Nucadia.com, who is an online seller of comic books. They offered us coupons for every buyer. I would encourage people to check out their site and buy a Golden Age comic from them. And they're going to handle the fulfillment for us. So they have special boxes, special shipping, and that's going to make my life a lot easier as well. There are also companies that could do that. If you were thinking of doing a Kickstarter, no matter where you live, I think they're called Backer Kit or something, and they can do fulfillment for you. There's a whole bunch of companies out there that can do that for folks.
Second part, I don't think you heard what he asked. Is this a one and done, or are you looking at?
I don't want it to be a one and done, so we're working on an issue 2 and an issue 3 that I'm sort of trying to plot out and figure out what would happen there. I talked to someone last night who told me they really loved Anthem, so we were thinking already of how could we maybe find a 6-page backup story that would fit into their schedule, or at least I am. They don't know that yet. Sorry.
Thank you.
But I don't want it to be a one and done. I think these are great characters. I want them to see the light of day. I want people to react well. I wouldn't have gotten Sean and Marty to take time off from Pixar, and Mark Waid, who can write all of his own projects, and Barry, who Mark and everyone else want, and Mark Buckingham, who could do anything they wanted. I wouldn't have got any of them if they didn't see how much passion and love I have for this. Yes, sir.
Are you hoping Liberty Brigade becomes like, The Walking Dead or Fable?
Sure. That will certainly be carried on the strength of Mark, Barry, Mark, Sean, and Marty, and have little to do with me, and I will gladly turn it over to some showrunner and hope they'll let me have a walk-on appearance once in a while.
Hey, can we take a quick microface break?
Yeah. All right, you're going to see microface.
Coming on or no? Should be in.
Power technology.
And I repeat, he does not grow, he does not shrink, his name is Microface.
He was tweeting long before Twitter.
Oh,
That must have terrified them.
let me see if I can find the bouncer. You guys go on.
Oh, I'll tell you another character we wanted. Everybody here knows the Punisher, right? Anybody know Sparkman? Nope. Okay, Sparkman, for those who don't know, there were two different, the first conceit about Sparkman was one of the earliest heroes where you didn't know who he was. There were several heroes that might be Sparkman. It took several issues into the comic to figure out who he actually was. He figured out he was a violinist, he could play the violin, and it created some electrical signals, and he could conduct them through his gloves, but he was the precursor to the Punisher. He went around when he wasn't hanging Nazis, shooting them, throwing them off trains, running them over with trains. Every issue he found, apparently in the golden age of comics, there were thousands of Nazis running around the American homeland and dying in all kinds of bizarre ways in hundreds of comics every month. There's the bouncer. He wore a dress.
My question is,
You said there was no diversity.
he also starred with Rocket Kelly and One Round Hogan is not the guy you want to be fighting, because let's presume it's one round in his favor, because that's not how I'm reading this. I'm reading this like one round, like Glassjaw Hogan. Did you use Rocket Kelly and One Round Hogan? Were you tempted?
I really was tempted, but I gave them up in favor of Mini Midget, who were a mini midget. So we're actually going to call him Mini in our comic.
The bouncer was
See if-
created by Eisenberg.
See if you can find Dr. Hormone.
I could be wrong, but I thought Eisner had a piece of the creation of the bouncer. It was a quality character.
Really?
I think so.
Really? Don't talk about Eisner that way. That's mean.
Oh, come on, he had to make a living.
I had no idea.
I guess the other comment I'll say is we wanted to bring back a lot of the patriotic heroes. So we looked for a lot of those in the red, white, and blue to fit them in on these other teams.
Oh my God.
You found them? Yeah, so I know who he is. I didn't want to use him.
That
was
easy. There you go, please. Dr. Hormone.
All right, so let me just make a comment. Let me just make a comment. When you have to do a book that involves the great one, Marty Baumann, you have to go in with a really strong backbone of steel, because Marty's team would have been, unsellable. The Liberty Brigade, starring Dr. Hormone, Hogan. Mark Waid and I could not come up with a story where One Round Hogan, and then imagine asking Mark and Barry, hey, I'd really like you to illustrate Dr. Hormone.
Maybe. maybe.
So no, we
The
skipped
adult
those
line
characters.
that you're gonna
Adult,
bump.
yeah, no. So again, the Liberty Brigade hopefully will save the day in the graphic novel and move to additional adventures. But we have Minnie and Riddy, who were Minnie, Midget, and Riddy. They were shrunk by a villain, and their names were never used, so we had to give them a name. The Blue Flame showed up in one 6-page story. He never had a name, and he never had an origin, so we've given him one. And one other change we made to the 40s. For reasons I don't know, most of the heroes ran around in shorts and short-sleeve shirts. So I actually, gave them long pants and long sleeves most of the time, thinking, why are you guys running around?
Well, I can answer that. I think that's because most of the Golden Age heroes, even Superman, were modeled after circus act. I mean, that was where you found costume characters with capes and tights back then were circus performers. And so they all sort of dress, circus performers all dress like the high wire guys and stuff. And even today, you look at, what few trapeze artists are left, they're wearing shorts and tunics. So
that is true. How many of you ever read a book called The 12? Anybody read The 12 from Marvel Comics? It's a great book. It was illustrated by the wonderful Chris Weston and Gary Leach. In that book, 12 Golden Age heroes from Marvel awake in the modern era. I personally was always put off by the fact that Chris Weston made sure to show each and every hair on the male characters' legs in their little short shorts as they ran around. So I decided that my guys would spring for long johns, and that they would probably, I think it makes a better visual as well for the characters. So that was really important. So I hope you'll really support the book. Any other questions for anybody, or I'll give you one last comment from me and see if anyone else has any. We were very blessed. We used Professor Ralph Ullman and his great researcher, Robert Mormon, from GW Law School, to look at and investigate for us the public domain status of all of these characters. So poor Robert kept getting a list. I said, oh, it's only 40 characters. And it became 60 and 70 and 90 and 100. And the poor fellow had to keep trudging back to the Copyright Office. But we wanted to make sure that these were public domain characters. And as a thank you, you will find a warden in this comic named after Professor Ullman. So you will find Warden Ullman. We decided that he can oversee a federal penitentiary. So that was his reward for help and assistance.
Warden Ullman sounds as good a character as any of the other characters that you mentioned. He should also be wearing shorts and tights.
Well, he's a real person, and we really...
so is the hobo.
Yeah, he is. In fact, I would encourage everybody to buy the book, go to the Hero Initiative, make a donation, and get Kevin Butch Brogan to sign the comic as the Fighting Hobo. Yes, sir.
Did you ever actually explain the stretch targets?
No.
Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't. See, I'm such a novice. I believe if you go to the Kickstarter, our first stretch target was a Yankee Doodle Jones versus, I think, the Singing Skull pinup by Rick Megger. It's already drawn, penciled, and inked. It's beautiful. I think our second stretch goal is a one-page origin of a team of triplets known as the Triple Terror. So, people probably, who are these people? We're the Triple Terror. Gee, do you think it's those three triplets that keep vanishing whenever the Triple Terror shows up? I don't know.
I know three triplets, I wonder. Yeah.
There you go. You want to show Minnie, who looks just like Aquaman.
Yeah.
So Aquaman's costume, Aquaman stole poor Minnie Midget. He stole his costume for the most part. But there he is. He looks exactly like him. And so Aquaman took that. I believe our next stretch goal after those two is a 4-page origin story for Kay the Unknown. We have a new Kay the Unknown we want to introduce. We have a great tie. It's going to be an African-American female character. We have a great tie to a Golden Age character. I really hope we hit that. After that, I think we have a Green Llama stretch goal, and if we hit that, I have a few more, but I didn't want to get too far ahead of myself because the poor art team would be called upon to draw it. My editor would insist on renegotiate his contract because of the additional pages, and that would be a problem for me.
Anybody else?
This might sound like a dumb question, but other than like the United States, basically heroes, have you also considered like adding other heroes from like other countries, like Poland, Soviet Russia, France, like
That's not a dumb question at all.
That's a great question, and I want you to know I actually thought long and hard about it, but I was unable to afford sending Robert Moorman to the copyright offices of the foreign countries. But in all seriousness, I really did want to do that. I just don't know how to know. I didn't want to step on. I really do respect the intellectual property rights, and I didn't want to step on some of the characters. But there is a character who seems to wear the flag of several allied countries all at once that I think is in a public domain, and that character may in fact show up, though their costume looks a little goofy. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I was just hoping that you would have like maybe like a Polish superhero here, a Soviet superhero, that like make it not based on like, you know, the U.S. like the common trope is the United States won the war. Yeah, but we also contributed. Well,
Right. Let me give you a great comment on that. In our right in our
I think
book,
you'll find that Britain won the war.
with Soviet blood, American steel, and British intelligence. So those were.
Yes. So let me comment on that. The green turtle in our comic is not an American. The green turtle is a Chinese person from China. In World War II, many people don't know the Chinese and the Americans, they were all fighting on the same side. And so the green turtle will make comment in reference to the fact when I leave, because his country in our comic sent him here to help out the Allies and be part of that. I would love maybe in future issues to have the Liberty Brigade be somewhere else. In issue 1, they're largely going to be working to stop the assassination attempt, but I was very deliberate that the green turtle is not an American and is not a citizen of the United States.
Yeah, I was just wondering, that's all.
If you could get Blackhawk, you'd have them all covered.
So, Blackhawk, yes. Thank you, Marty.
If you don't have, if you're using public domain characters, have you trademarked the Liberty Brigade name?
The Liberty Brigade name, yes, that has been trademarked, as has Thrilling Nostalgia Comics, so I try to make it both exciting and nostalgic at the same time. And good old Marty Baumann is the one who I stick with all of these. I told Marty, well, Barry's going to draw the women of America in a giant splash, and it won't look right unless they have a cool logo. And then I came, he says, okay, Michael. Then I came back and said, I created a new team called Roosevelt's Raiders, and they need a cool logo. And now I've taken all of the air fighters of World War II, and they need a cool logo. So Marty just creates logos and is ruining the day that, you know, he ever said he would help me out.
Although they're public domain characters, have you changed their costumes in an attempt to create things that you have the perpetual rights to?
There's a company called Dynamite that does that, so they use the Black Terror and others, and they made minor modifications to their costumes so that they could own that original version. And I encourage people to read their books as well. They're doing something a little different, putting them in the modern age, but it's a really wonderful set of books. To answer your question, no, I for the most part deliberately wanted to use the original costumes of the characters, and then I made some minor modifications. So I'm happy to keep talking. I think we're coming to the end here, if I'm right. Maybe one last question.
Did you ever run into, like, sometimes like with music and entertainment, that there were regional aspects of character? You had a character that may have appeared on the West Coast, that was really on a big on the West Coast, but then you had maybe a doppelganger on the East Coast that was just something that in the books that sold on the East Coast. Did you have any stories about that or find out something?
So Ace Harlem, for example, All Negro Comics 1, people have puzzled quite a bit over what the distribution of that comic actually was. We know it was distributed in the Philadelphia area. We believe it was distributed in parts of the New York area, but it does not appear to have been a nationwide comic book. There were others like Rural Home and other kind of strange little companies. There was a character called Rocket Man and Rocket Girl, and then they were published in Canada, and it was the same exact comic, but they called them Jet Man and Jet Girl. Catman and Kitten. When Catman he was published in Australia, they got rid of Kitten and gave him a completely new sidekick, but kept the same person. And he would have the same name, and he was Catman. Catman also told people 2 different origins. One other thing I should tell folks, if you read the Green Turtle comics, Boy, Mark Waid's about to have a field day. He constantly tried to tell his origin to his sidekick, Burma Boy, and every time in the comic, he says, "Oh, Burma Boy, let me tell you how I got my powers," and something happens. And then a few issues later, "Okay, Burma Boy, back to my origin. What happened? How I became the Green Turtle was," and that was, he couldn't show his face and he couldn't tell his origin. So we have managed to solve both of those problems today.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? So, on behalf of everybody, thank you for coming. If you haven't gotten one of the free prints, please come on up. I want to thank this great team of people. I want to thank Sean for bringing this to life, for allowing the Baltimore Comic-Con to make it the official shirt and the convention guide, Marty for designing every single logo in the world, Barry Kitson for having the immense patience, I'm going to come back to Mark, the immense patience to put up with me and my ridiculous demands and to draw multiple characters. I think there probably are far more than 11. A 9-member superhero team is tough. Mark Buckingham for many hours of encouragement, telling me, "No, I think you really can write," and my just thinking it's just impossible. And of course, Mark Waid, who absolutely, everyone knows that Mark is an incredible writer. He has no need to be an editor, and I thank him for his generosity and kindness in helping me in this as well. So thank you all. I hope you'll support the book, and thank you, everybody. You said sit.
Mark? Yes.
You
said.
said.
I said.
Oh, yeah, you can find it to buy at the exclusive table right downstairs at the front.